And I have to say, first of all, as a 19-year-old young lady from Germany, Naomi just impressed me so much. At this conference in Munich, I attended the European Institute for Climate and Energy, their annual climate conference. And their General Secretary, Wolfgang Mueller, had seen some of Naomi's videos on YouTube. And she has 50,000 followers.
It's as a 60,000.
I'm sorry, 60,000. Not 60,000 followers where she's talking about what party she went to, not 60,000 followers talking about what celebrity she likes, 60,000 followers from a young 19-year-old lady who spends her time reading political philosophy, who spends her time researching current events and competing points of view, and then giving her impression, very well thought out, very well reasoned, very articulate. And so when Wolfgang Mueller saw this, he invited her to attend the climate conference in Germany. And during that 2-day conference, Naomi was paying close attention. Again, here we have this young lady. I'm not 19 anymore. And even at 19, in my 30s, in my 50s, it's hard to sit through 2 days of a conference and pay rapt attention, no matter how interesting the topic. And yet Naomi is there watching intently, taking notes, during the meal sessions, making a point to ask questions, very probing questions, very insightful questions, not softball questions, to the scientists in attendance. And Wolfgang Mueller saw this and said at the end of the conference, Naomi, can you come up and would you feel comfortable giving a 5-minute talk? I can tell you if someone had asked me to do that at 19, I would go, no. That would be me stammering and rejecting it. And yet this young lady, just based upon what she had been reading and researching and talking with the scientists there, she gave that talk. I was so impressed, I asked her that if there's anything we can do with the Heartland Institute to help her out, to help her deliver her message on climate realism, on individual freedom, and we're so happy to have you as that voice. So thank you so much, Naomi, for everything you do.
Thank you so much.
So my first question for you is, how did you decide to start posting your YouTube videos?
Can you hear me? Yes, you can. Okay. So I started posting YouTube videos in May 2019, and that was a very spontaneous decision. After I had posted a video with just a German poem that I'd written about bravery, about courage in the current political climate. And I'd been following other YouTube channels for ages, for many years. And I'd been looking up to so many other people online on YouTube, like Stefan Molyneux, Jordan Peterson, and many scientists and other people talking about politics, about libertarianism. And for the first time, I had the chance to speak myself and to talk about everything that I'd been doing so much research on, and I got so many views all of a sudden. And so I saw that as a great chance, a great opportunity for me to share my own values with people and to have them question me and to challenge my own views as well.
So even with the expertise of Heartland Institute Communications Director Jim Lakely behind me, I don't think I could gain 60,000 followers. So how long did it take for you to develop a following?
It happened rather quickly, I would say, in Germany in the beginning. I got maybe 20,000 followers all of a sudden within a couple of weeks. And then it stagnated a little bit, and now I'm gaining more followers again because I'm in the media spotlight, because I'm doing more international work, and I can see in my statistics, my analytics on YouTube, that I'm gaining way more international followers now, which is amazing. I've always wanted to do this kind of work more in the international sphere as well.
And what really impresses me is, and I hope everyone in the audience can see this isn't somebody with handlers feeding her scripts. This isn't somebody that's telling her what to say, and this isn't somebody that has to read her notes to find where she is. It blows me away how insightful and poised you are. And with that, because earlier this week you were featured on the front page of the Washington Post. You've been the subject of feature articles in major newspapers around the world. You were on Fox News yesterday. Much of that is wonderful to see, but sometimes that's used as a platform to attack you or to try to make it seem like you're something you're not in a negative manner. Can you tell us maybe a few of the things that you've had to deal with? Maybe even, I know you've shared with me some of the hate mail you've received, which to me is just disgusting. And yet at the same time, here you are poised and taking it all in. So tell us about that experience.
Well, I do get death threats sometimes, hate mail, even on the phone, Antifa calling me. Well, I'm from Germany and I live in a town where Fridays for Future happens every single week and where the Green Party is very strong. And teenagers, people my age and my generation, even older, see me as this monster, really, as a climate denier. And most of them don't even want to listen to me. And to be honest, that's what really hurts me the most. I don't mind being insulted and words can't harm me, and as long as nothing really happens to me physically, I'm fine, basically. But what I don't like is when people try to prevent me from giving speeches, from talking online. Because I think that this whole restriction of speech, of free speech, is leading to a more totalitarian society, and that is destructive in the long run. And tiny insults don't hurt me.
I have a question backing up a little bit. I understand that in Germany, and there are many schools here in the United States that teach climate alarmism from early on. How did you avoid being indoctrinated, or how come you aren't part of the rest?
I didn't avoid that. Back when I was in school, I was a climate alarmist myself, absolutely. Well, I didn't participate in any protests or anything like that. They weren't happening when I was in school. I graduated from high school in 2017 when I was 16, so I was quite young. But I believed in man-made climate change and that it's also destructive myself, because I never questioned it. That's the thing. Once you peel back each layer of propaganda and once you just ask some simple scientific questions about climate change, you do become aware rather quickly that there's much more to this topic than what we're being told. And so, yeah, at school, I was still a lazy thinker, I would say. I was inspired by, like I said, many people I found online, many scientists that I look up to now, to do more research. Also because I've always loved science and I took part in many science competitions in middle school, for example, and quite successfully so. So I can finally combine my main values of scientific skepticism and also my libertarianism. And that's awesome.
Do you have the time that whatever seed was there that got you to go from, or at least started you on the path of looking at the facts and questioning the climate alarmism? And was there a certain moment, or you just saw something here and there? How did that happen that you started on this alternative path from the break from the herd, I guess to say?
Interesting question. I think it was kind of snowball effect. It started with my mother actually questioning the climate science, and she is a lawyer, so she doesn't really know anything about science. Not to be mean to her, but that's just the case. And so I told her, please stop talking about something that you have no idea about. And then finally I told her, okay, I will look into this with my scientific background, and I did. And I started really becoming fascinated just after watching some speeches online, and then I became fascinated with the studies, and I wanted to learn how to read studies thoroughly anyway, and that's how I got into it, really. Yeah.
And then where was the tipping point? So you started, your mom was talking with you, you said, I'm going to do a deep dive into this topic and start really learning about it. And then was there a data point, or what got you to go, oh, yep, I'm going from there to here? Yeah,
it really was a process of, I would say, almost 6 months. And because I told myself, if I want to publish something about this, make a video about this maybe on my channel, then I really need to know what I'm talking about. Because if climate change is really that destructive, and if it's actually happening because of man-made CO2 emissions, then if I give out the wrong message, and if I tell people there's nothing to worry about, then I might be participating in the destruction of the planet, which I didn't want to do. And so it was in summer 2019 when I finally decided, okay, now I think I've got a solid stance on this, and I feel comfortable with my research enough to upload a video about this topic.
And that was the coming out video. What was it?
No, the coming out video is one of the very few videos that are in English on my YouTube channel. I will produce more English content in the future, but I made a video in German about climate change and I put lots of effort into the editing and music and studies, everything. Yeah, and that's the one that Wolfgang Müller found when he invited me to ICAP.
So I have to say, when I started looking at your videos, I could only find a couple in English. Most were in German. And by the way, it's just amazing that here NAOMI is able to give voice to this perspective, not in her native language, in her second language. And that was another thing that just showed me how just amazingly intelligent you are, that you can present this information in English probably better than I can. But what I saw when I was looking at your videos was I saw that you had spoken about climate change, and that's why Wolfgang invited you to the European Institute for Climate and Energy Conference. But the others were about individual freedom and about personal rights and liberties. So can you tell me where in your mind you see an intersection between individual freedom and climate realism?
Yes, absolutely. The problem is that the propaganda that is being put out there about climate change is of course heavily associated with policies that they want to impose on us. As you said, they want to grab our wallets basically, and they will drive us into energy poverty, and that is a way for them to control us. And I see a very I see a socialist agenda at the root of all of this, a very totalitarian and dangerous narrative. And that's why climate change became so important to me. I loved doing the research on the science, and it's important that I know what I'm talking about when it comes to the science. But the main issue that I have with this entire topic is not that we might be, that there's a discussion about whether or not it's real out there. It's that we are only listening to one perspective, and that is the other side. That is not us, climate realists. Most people don't want to listen to us. And I wish they would. I wish they were more willing to give us more platforms to speak, and that's why I'm really enjoying what I'm doing, and that's why I accept pretty much every interview, because I want to have the opportunity to speak. And if the media wants to publish slanderous articles and TV footage about me, go ahead, but at least I gave it a try. At least I tried talking to you. And it really annoys me when they publish something without even talking about me, talking to me personally.
James, could you comment on, we've attempted to have debates with others on the other side. It's been a long time. It's not very easy. Or those that are truly well-informed from their side, scientists, others, we have a problem getting them on the same stage.
Yeah, that's true. If you were to do an internet search, if you were to type in James Taylor, Heartland Institute, and debate, you would find a good number of debates, I'm happy to say, but they would entirely be older videos, because we can't get climate alarmists to get on a stage with climate realists anymore. And I always try to tell people, look up, do the internet search, because find my worst debate performance, and still when I'm at my worst, because science is on my side, I tend to win. And that's not something about my debating skills. It's simply the fact of the matter regarding climate realists across the board. And so as a result, you can't get that debate anymore, which is a shame, because I believe that people are intelligent enough to discern facts, to make up their minds, to do so smartly. We're a democracy for a reason. We're not ruled by God kings, because the people are able to make up their minds, to discern information, and hopefully the day will come when, if they won't come on stage, maybe we'll have a little more balance in the media where both sides are reported, as Naomi says. Report both sides, not just one.
Naomi, could you comment on that topic of having both sides in Germany? Because you're catching even more heat in Germany than here, because in Germany it's supposed to be universal and you're not supposed to be speaking out. And that's another difference that we all as Americans take for granted, of a tradition and a constitutional amendment that enables free speech and that it's a protected right. Much of the rest of the world it is not. And there are some discussions of closing down this debate because you guys just are wrong, so we can't talk anymore.
Yeah, for example, the restriction of free speech on social media platforms is very heavy in Germany. My mother was just recently deleted on Facebook entirely. And there are more, I think they have new fact-checking laws in Germany now, where they are allowed to just ban channels and accounts altogether, and it's specifically in Germany on Twitter and Facebook, I think. If people spread fake news, which is what they call it, I guess. But who checks those facts and who says what's right and what's wrong? And that's the entire problem. Who gets to decide what is truly right and what is wrong? And if we shut down people with a different opinion, we don't even allow for discussion, then we can't ever find the path to truth.
Heartland Institute and I think about 35 other organizations are banded together in a free speech coalition to pressure Facebook and others, Google, from throttling back or having unfair fact checkers. I suggested to the Facebook folks that they would have a fact checker from the right and from the left. They have this idea that the facts are the facts, but you, particularly in this issue, when you have leftists making the decisions, they are deciding that virtually anything on this topic are to be prohibited or that are non-facts. And it is really interesting, and we'll get into some more of those facts and talk about those, but it's a side issue to this, but it's stronger in Germany. They're talking about it, and of course, you all are busy leading your lives. We are too, but we spend more time on this issue. And Canada is also starting to talk about, well, we should just shut down those deniers. They shouldn't be able to talk about it anymore. And every now and then you'll get a leftist politician here in the United States who'll say that same thing. And they should keep mentioning Heartland Institute by name. We appreciate it. But we will continue telling the truth.
I just have a couple more questions, and then we'll turn it over to folks in the audience. One question I have, the question that I get most often when a reporter calls me to ask about you is, who writes your material?
I do it myself. And seriously, these guys, they don't know what I'm doing when I'm doing it. When I prepare for a speech or for an interview, they're not even aware what's going on. Sometimes they don't realize when I give an interview. And so I usually handle things myself. I got lots of help from Jim Lakely. He drove me around and he supported me in all of this, the organizing things part, basically. But I write everything myself and I talk for myself. Yeah, there's nobody behind this.
Okay, and one final question here. This is your first visit to the United States of America.
Yes.
And give us your impressions culturally, whatever else, how you enjoy it, things you like, don't like, whatever comes to mind.
I really love the individualism. I am a huge individualist myself, and I can see that everybody here gets to be themselves, and I really love that. And whether you're on the left or on the right, and you can wear whatever you want, you can say whatever you want, basically. I know there's PC culture here as well, but mostly I can still see the free-thinking spirit in most Americans, and I really love that. I love how friendly people are to me. That is something that I'm missing a bit in Germany. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Jim, I'll let you moderate for audience questions.
All right, that'd be great. I actually have a question for myself first. First of all, I have to say that if you can come up to the microphone here to ask a question. If you ask a question we like, there's t-shirts that we have here that Naomi had designed herself and we had made for the conference here. And it's becoming something of a motto. I don't want you to panic, I want you to think. And then the back is like this. So if you ask a question that we think is excellent, you get one t-shirt.
Bribery.
If you ask a question that we don't like, you get 2 t-shirts, and we make you wear them and give it to somebody else. But before we take the audience questions, I want to take the opportunity here to thank you, Naomi. This is the first time I've spent this amount of time with her, and she is an incredibly impressive young woman. I have to keep reminding myself that this young woman is 19 years old because she has a brain that's a lot more advanced than that. Of course, she did mention that she graduated from high school early. And I asked Naomi, I said, as we're getting to know each other, like, well, what do you do for fun? I like to play tennis and, I have other hobbies. She goes, I like to read science and politics and economics. All right, so that explains a lot. But actually, I wonder if you could explore a little bit deeper, because one thing I did ask her is like, how did you come upon this? What was some of the early science that you had seen that made you start to think for yourself and think this thing through and become a climate skeptic? And I wonder if you could kind of bring the audience through a little bit more of your intellectual journey into this space.
Well, I'd heard about greenhouse gas emissions, but to be honest, I didn't really know what that even meant. And so I thought to myself, you should probably not be that lazy and start looking into this. And what does it even mean? What can CO2 do? What can it not do? And what are the claims by the IPCC even based on? And I found out that it's just climate models, and that didn't really speak to my scientific skepticism. So I had to immerse myself in the topic, delve in deep, and look into what's really behind the CO2 fear-mongering, all of this panic. Yeah, and then I continued to do my research, and I found out about different factors that play into the climate, like water feedback and the impact that the sun has on the climate. Yeah, that's how it started.
And some of the scientists, I just wanted to mention, you had mentioned Dr. Richard Lindzen, and you mentioned a lot of people that actually have spoken at Heartland climate conferences over the years.
Yes, also Nir Shaviv and Hendrik Svensmark, they do lots of research on the solar cycles, the impact that the sun has on the climate. I spoke to Susan Crockford, who does research on the polar bear extinction, which is not actually happening. Well, many people from the Heartland Institute, of course. I spoke a lot with Lord Christopher Monckton, who is an amazing individual, who has taught me so much and who has given me so many opportunities to do more research on many topics. Yeah.
And Lord Monckton is funny. He's smart and funny and fun to be around as well.
Excellent. Okay, so we have some rules for the questions here. If you would please identify yourself so that all of the people on the stage know to whom they are speaking, and if you could keep it in the form of a question as much as possible, that's appreciated. Sir, you are up.
My name is John Tarrant, and I'm very interested in this, and it's always been my understanding that the end product of global warming is the start of the next ice age. And I haven't heard much discussion about what we do when the next ice age starts, because when the Arctic Ocean becomes totally open water, then you get a mega lake effect snow, and that's what builds up the glaciers on the continents, and they come south. So I'd like your thoughts on that, and what do we do about it? Thank you.
I don't know. I mean, do you want to answer as well?
Sure.
Okay.
The ice age cycle is quite interesting and quite concerning, because we've been in an ice age for approximately 3 million years, and it's characterized by glaciations, cooling temperatures, advancing glaciers for on average 100,000 years, maybe 150,000 years. And that's interrupted very briefly by interglacial warm periods, which have varied in length but averaged approximately 10,000 years in duration. And we're in one of those interglacial warm periods. And we've been in that, our current interglacial warm period, for approximately 10,000 years. And that's the reason why in the 1970s, after 30 years of cooling, many scientists as well as media outlets were talking about the onset of the next ice age, and what they really meant was next glaciation. There are many factors involved. Scientists don't know all of them for sure. Certainly the supposition that an ice-free Arctic may be the cause, but we also know that in past interglacial warm periods, temperatures, the past several, have been warmer than today and have sustained that. There are other factors likely involved as well. Many scientists feel that if not for human emissions of carbon dioxide beginning to some extent during the 1800s, during the 19th century, we might have slipped into that next glaciation. So for me, I'm much more concerned about that, because the impacts, the negative impacts of an ice sheet covering all of Canada, descending all the way down into the northern United States, and that's just here, and of course around the world it's so much worse, crop failures, famines, etc. That is an order of magnitude more frightening than 2 degrees Celsius warming, which would put us about where we were for most of the past 6, 7, 8,000 years.
Okay. Yes, and you asked the question, what are we supposed to do about that? And that's the problem. We can't really do anything about that, and that's why it is so concerning. This is another natural phenomenon, and how are we supposed to prevent an ice age? Maybe by driving more cars.
Well, there's another part historically in the last 3,000 years. There was a warm period from about 700 BC to the time of Christ. I like to say there's a reason why those Romans wore togas and shorts all the time. It was warmer. It was warmer then than it is now. There was a medieval warm period, and you can check these out on Wikipedia, and that's a left-leaning publication from my standpoint, but they're in there, and it factually deals with it from about 900 to 1300, the time of the Vikings, the time of Greenland. Greenland wasn't a clever marketing technique to get Icelandic Vikings to move up there. They actually were growing crops there, food crops there. They actually had a bunch of cows there. There were about 5,000 Vikings that lived there until about 1300, when it became too cold and they moved away. Then we had the little ice age, it's called, and this is in Wikipedia as well, from about that 1300 to about 1850. There's not a lot of argument about that. About 1850, our world started to get warmer, and it's been getting warmer ever since. It's not accelerating, and in fact, it might have topped off in the last 20 years. And we'll talk more about those facts. But that it's been gently warming since then, and it's been wetter, and there's a lot of evidence to this, and there's a lot of good things that are happening. You're sold a steady diet, and I understand it. If you're a football fan, they worked into the coverage of the Super Bowl that you might not be able to go to the Miami Stadium in the future because it'll be underwater. We did a nice little study on that, and it'll take 3,000 years at our current rate of about an inch a decade of increasing ocean levels. So there's a variety of things that you have all been fed, misinformation that this young lady went and dived below and looked at. But to your question, all those things happened and man didn't contribute or not. And I view it as a lot of hubris that us as little specks on this big planet think we control it all from what we do.
Okay, thank you. And sir, don't forget to come get your t-shirt if you want one. Ma'am, you are next.
Hi, my name is Genesis Torres, and I'm an aquatic ecologist and science associate at CO2 Coalition. So I have 2 questions for Naomi. My first one is, what's your best advice for kids who want to become more unalarmed?
Stop being afraid of not just of climate change, but especially don't be afraid that your friends might disagree with you, that people will try to shut you down, because that's what I'm being confronted with, of course. But in the end, my first principle is always speak the truth and stay true to yourself. Because if I don't do that, it depresses me. I have found out for myself that it's pointless to try to fit in with the crowd. So do your research thoroughly, and you will probably enjoy it very much, and it will be worth it in the end.
Naomi
You will
Seibt
find
says,
your true friends that way. I found many true friends that way.
Naomi Seibt says, don't worry about what your friends think and about being ostracized. And James Taylor says, don't worry, you've got a friend.
to get the underlying stories, get new friends. But you should also talk to other people as well who may not share your views.
So my next question is, as an aquatic ecologist, I have a lot of friends and I studied with a lot of people that are very alarmed, and so I get a lot of that backlash as well. But what's your take on ocean acidification?
To be honest, I don't know that much about how alarming that would actually be. If you want, you can say more about that.
Well, here's what I'm going to say. I could, but better yet, I'll do it very briefly in a moment, but
Okay.
this is a perfect opportunity for you to get to know Ms. Torres, because she gave an excellent talk about that yesterday on ocean acidification. And the message was, much like many of the asserted crises, not only is it not a crisis, actually it's providing benefits when we see the pH level coming down. That was a great talk.
It really is fascinating, though, how many issues there are, individual issues on climate change, and how much we really have to address, and how much research we can do. Yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
The world is a big place with a lot of different factors, and my observation of the left who are using this issue as their Trojan horse issue, as they are spinning virtually every single one, and most of them are not factually accurate, such as the polar bears or the Great Barrier Reef going away. Like many things, it's like Antarctica, it's growing on one side, receding on the other. Let's only talk about where it's receding. I mean, it's this kind of game that goes on that they do.
Sir?
Thank you. My name is Bill Stella. I'm the ultimate cynic. I think this whole climate thing is all about grabbing money. It's a fundraising for environmentalists, politicians. I think there's probably $4 trillion involved in this, selling carbon credits and stuff like that. But having said all that, tell me, just how much impact has man-made carbon emissions reflected on climate change?
That's hard to say for us, of course. But I personally believe, from my own research, that it's just a very tiny effect, if at all. Because we have to take into account so many other factors. And so the main claims that are out there by the IPCC are just, like I said, based on those climate models. And they say that the effect of warming that you would get from emitting CO2 in the air, that you would get in a lab experiment, is actually 4 times as strong as it would be in this lab experiment. That's what the IPCC claims. And like I said, those claims are merely based on those models, which are completely outdated. They are very old, and none of the actual real-world data claims about how much the temperature would be rising in the last decades. They didn't really manifest in reality. They said, for example, in 1990 that it would be that we would get 1/3 of a degree of warming every single decade, and that has not happened. So they need to, in their climate models, what they are lacking, for example, is the impact of the sun and the impact of water vapor, water feedback. They just basically choose and pick their own factors that they want to use, their variables for their models. And so it's really just playing a computer game to me, and it's not good science based on real world data.
Thank you.
Next up, please identify yourself for our panel, please.
Yeah, my name is Zach. I'm here from Alaska. I have a background in science. Thank you so much for being here, Naomi. It's great to meet you. I think I've actually spoken to quite a few people at this conference who are viewing this issue a lot more seriously now, even over the last couple of years. I am alarmed. I don't consider myself to be an alarmist, but you asked us to challenge you, and so I'm going to come and try to challenge you. So the one and only thing that you've really said so far about the science is that climate has always been changing. And that is absolutely true. The medieval warm period, the glacial interglacial cycles that our friend spoke to are absolutely well understood scientifically. The thing about those past changes is that they were elucidated, they were demonstrated and shown by climate scientists. The very same people who are now telling us in no uncertain terms that the world is warming at an unprecedented rate due to human activity. So my question is, you were lecturing climate alarmists about hypocrisy. I'm wondering whether you feel it's at all hypocritical to accept past climate science of the past, while questioning very publicly climate science of the present, particularly since you are not a scientist, but as this flyer points out, a 19-year-old YouTube personality. Thank you.
First of all, thank you for acknowledging that I am a 19-year-old girl and I'm not supposed to be followed unconditionally on whatever I have to say about the science. And with regards to this topic, my question would be, what makes those people say, those same climate scientists, that we are the cause for this new warming? I don't deny that there might be warming going on right now, but what is the root cause behind all of this? And so, that's my take on that.
If I can just add to that, Thank you, Naomi. If I can just add to that, the assertion that the scientists in the world agree that this is unprecedented and that they understand that it has nothing to do with natural factors in terms of what's happening now, that's simply not right. Some of the greatest scientific minds of this generation, Will Happer, Dick Lindzen, I can go on and on. These are people, Fred Singer, who have been giants, absolute giants in science. And they have reached a conclusion. So I don't think you can just dismiss it and say scientists say this. When you have you have thousands of scientists who said the opposite. But more importantly, when you look at the data doesn't show that current temperatures are rising at an unprecedented pace. It's simply not the case. But the beauty of this is, and the beauty of this discussion, and it's why I really appreciate your question, is that people can and should, as Naomi said, not take my word, not take your word, not even take Will Happer's or Dick Lindzen's word or Fred Singer's word, but look at the evidence yourself, and that's where you're going to find truth.
And some of what's gone on as well is, as a professor I had in college said, is that figures don't lie, but liars figure. And they put this chart up that we're unprecedented warmth, but if you include the medieval warm period and the Roman warm period, it actually tilts down the other way, and we're cooler than they were then. You'll also have some of those, maybe not scientists, but those on that are selling the alarmist point of view. They'll say, well, it's never been warmer. Well, it has been warmer. And as the glaciers in Africa, the glaciers, well, there's one, Kilimanjaro still there. They said it was going to be completely gone on top of that mountain out there in eastern Africa. But in Alaska, there are receding glaciers, some of which are growing, but many are receding. And as they're receding, you're uncovering forests underneath the glaciers. How did they get there if it hasn't been warmer? How is it that there used to be Vikings planting food crops and grain crops in Greenland, but you can't grow those there today? How did that happen? So it's interesting, and then to make that leap, because they didn't have CO2 back then. There weren't enough humans burning wood to create all of that. So how did that all happen? And natural occurrences. And then another interesting data point that we all just kind of skip by a lot, but NASA actually has said there's global warming on Mars. Well, Mars doesn't have any CO2 or any real climate, but why is it warming? Could it be the sun sending us a little more energy? A lot of these things we just don't know probably yet, but maybe in 100 or 200 or 300 years we may, or at least more.
So basically the main questions that you should be asking are, what makes you think that whatever climate change is going on right now is not just a natural phenomenon? And the second question is, what even is the ideal global mean surface temperature? Because we can only go on from there and then evaluate how destructive climate change warming can actually be if we know what the ideal global mean surface temperature is.
Yeah, and I would just, that's a very, very good point. I would just add, James, you brought up Dr. S. Fred Singer. He's retired fully now. He was very active into his early 90s. I believe he's 94 now. I was very fortunate to tour the country with him a few years back, one of his last national tours, talking about science. And he had presented something that had never occurred to me. You hear from the press that we're putting too much CO2 in the atmosphere. CO2 is warming the planet. CO2 is going to cause runaway warming. He explained very simply in a presentation that the ability of a molecule of carbon dioxide to have a warming effect decreases as you get higher. In other words, there's a pretty much a saturation point as a layperson would think of it. And he showed the charts. So the difference between going from 350 parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere, which is supposedly the drop dead zone, to 600 is the amount of warming you're going to get from that is minuscule compared to what it was from, say, 150 parts per million to 350 parts per million. This is not that, it's very complicated science, but it's not hard to understand some of the basic principles of science, especially how CO2 works in the atmosphere. And it would be really great if more people could learn that, and if the media actually would explore this and have scientific, science-based stories that address these issues.
Well, it would say both sides of the story. If they actually, to our media folks that are still here, gave both sides of the story if you're giving it, but there's a steady diet of only one side.
Right. But that's why I always say, there's CO2 in the atmosphere if you care about that, and I don't. So anything, last word on this, Naomi?
No, it's
Nope. Sir, you are next.
Yeah, my name is Tom Cooper, and I know that you've talked about sharing ideas and being open to discussion. But what we see recently, and Canada is a classic example that's occurring today, is that the activists that are climate change activists are seizing core infrastructure and basically stopping people's lives. So have you seen this in Europe? And if you haven't seen it in Europe, and it could come here to America, what precautions should be taken to put in laws to ensure that people can carry out their lives normally?
That's very difficult because as a libertarian, I am usually almost always against imposing any laws to restrict people from their liberties to change their lives in any way, shape, or form. And I think that if we just keep an open discussion, which is what's not happening right now, we need to start being able to have those open discussions again. Then I think we will be able to actually counteract all this very destructive, the destructive force from the other side. But I know what it feels like to really be shut down, or seeing people trying to shut me down. For example, in Germany, I gave a speech maybe two weeks ago, and thousands of people were protesting outside against this event, and I was one of 5 speakers, so I was basically 1/5 of the reason why people were protesting. And they even got the church involved, and so people were praying against me, against climate realists, against freedom of speech. And I wish they'd just listened. If they had listened to my speech and to what the other speakers had to say, I'm sure many of them would have realized that we're not Nazis, that we're not right-wing, that we're not evil. And so I think that's just the main thing that we need to promote, the main thing that we need to fight for. We need to gain more opportunities to speak, and we need to take every chance that we get.
And we have the shout down culture here on many campuses around the country. If they don't like what you're saying, they come and just keep yelling at you or try to prevent you from saying what you're going to say, rather than listen and maybe be convinced, or, as someone said, ask hard questions and give an alternative point of view. Could you comment, though, there's also been some the policies that have been put in place in Europe that are costing farmers and I think truckers and even regular people with increases in their public transportation and things. There's been some counter demonstrations against the policies that are going on to fight the global alarmist claims.
Yeah, especially the farmers are being attacked right now in Germany, and I think that's so hypocritical because the same people who say that we need to stop farmers from doing their jobs, local farmers who are really doing a great job for the environment and for our health and for our sustainable lifestyles. The same people buy avocados from that are shipped across the world and say that that's more environmentally friendly than local farmer products, just because the avocado is vegan, for example. And so I think that climate alarmists should really look at the bigger picture instead of instead of fighting the people who are actually on their side of environmentalism. I myself I ride my bike around the town in Germany, so I'm not destroying nature. I don't hate animals, none of that. I think that the mass production of animal products is horrible, and so we just need to be more precise in our questions and start looking at issues more precisely rather than just dividing between right and wrong and climate denier and climate alarmists. Yeah, there's more to this, and that's climate realism.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's pardon me. Hi, my name's Anthony Fisher. I'm a columnist at Business Insider. I had a question about your inspiration to start making YouTube videos. You had mentioned you were a fan of Jordan Peterson and Stefan Molyneux. In 2018, Stefan Molyneux said, "I've always been skeptical of the ideas of white nationalism, of identitarianism, and white identity. However, I'm an empiricist, and I could not help but notice that I could have peaceful, free, easy, civilized, and safe discussions in what is essentially an all-white country." Were you aware of his pivot towards white nationalism, and are you still a fan of Molyneux's?
I am still a fan of Molyneux, absolutely. And did you say Jordan Peterson or Stefan Molyneux? I think
Stefan
you mentioned
Molyneux.
both. Okay. Yes, I am still a fan of both of them, of Stefan Molyneux as well, because I know that this statement, taken out of context, sounds incredibly racist to many people. To me, it does not, because he is not devaluing other races, not at all. He's just describing his experience in Western countries. And I agree with that to the extent that, for example, I know for a fact that if I was in a country, for example, I don't know, in countries where the Sharia is more present, I know that I would not be able to speak as freely as I can in Western countries. And so that's the point that I want to make about that. It's not that we're better in any way in Western countries, and that's not the point that Stefan Molyneux is trying to make. It's just that we still have freedom of speech in these countries, and I'm very happy that that's the case.
All right, thank you.
You get 2 T-shirts, by the way. Thank you. Next, sir.
Hi, I'm Tim Kalen with Punching Bag Media. I've done deep research into mass influence propaganda theory, those kind of things. And Naomi, you're absolutely right that the agenda, it really isn't about climate. As a matter of fact, UN officials have admitted that it's more about income redistribution than it is about climate. But the problem is that, I mean, like you say, it's all through the primary schools, it's in the secondary schools, it's in the colleges. As a propaganda advantage, you're losing badly. And unfortunately, the price of losing just in the United States at this point is, what, $93 trillion? The question is, how do you win?
You win by speaking the truth, and by using every opportunity that you get to speak the truth. Because the biggest mistake that you can make is that you stay silent, even in the private conversations. And I've learned that myself. I've lost some friends over these topics, but to just stay silent in the end is what drives totalitarian societies. Lying is bad, but staying silent is just as bad as that.
I would challenge all of you to talk to people in the middle. I don't bother unless there are people in the middle who are uninformed or misinformed who will listen to engage with people on the left. They seem to have a different worldview and they really aren't interested in the facts. And generally, if you start to lay the facts on them, they'll get angry and call you names and leave. Which, if there are other people listening to that, I think is to your benefit. They won't invite you to their parties anymore. They may not talk to you anymore. They'll probably unfriend you on your social media, as many of my leftists in my family have done. And that's just what it is. But if you remain silent, as Naomi pointed out, you let the other side win, is the old saying, what does it take for evil to succeed but for good men to do nothing? So I challenge you to do something. We're doing our part and continue. And it also suggests we need to be better at marketing. We've done lots of good things that are really in depth and lots of facts and lots and lots and lots and lots. But your average people in the middle who are important because they elect the politicians who make a difference and make the rules and the laws and various things, or higher bureaucracies and bureaucrats. We need to continue to talk with them. We need to market our ideas to them. You need to learn enough about how they think so you can talk to them in their terms to bring them over to our side. Fortunately, right now, this issue, and regular Gallup polls regularly on issues, and it just passed the 50% mark that it's an important issue, but it's about the 12th to the 16th issue in the pantheon of what's important in people's minds. Elected Republicans, and I'll talk a little bit about that, are struggling with what to do with that, but we haven't lost yet. And the reason we're up here on the stage with all, literally, billions or trillions aligned against us, your leftist media selling you ideas all the time, like the Miami Stadium being underwater, is because the facts are so strongly on our side. Otherwise, they would have pushed us away a long time ago, and you wouldn't have all been interested enough to come here. So we still have the facts, but we have to spread the facts, and we have to do it more effectively to the people in the middle. And I challenge all of you to take that home and do that over the upcoming year.
Thank you,
Can I
sir.
ask a quick follow-up just to Naomi? It occurred to me from what he was saying that that's a pretty big price to pay when you're in high school and college to not have to not be invited to parties and to have that social pressure on you. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, sure. But like I said, I was a lot more depressed almost when I tried to fit in. And I don't know how other people feel about that. To many people, the social sphere is a lot more important, and they like to go out and party. That has never been my kind of thing. So yeah, to me, it's important to find true friends all over the world. And even if we are miles apart, and I've got friends on the other side of the world, basically, and that's still amazing because I got to meet those friends, I got to connect with those friends because I spoke the truth and because I stand true to what I truly believe in.
Okay. That's very brave.
Thank you so much.
Sir, your name?
It's Timothy Baroni. My family has a company and we do research actually in the tropics. I'm a biochemist, and it backs up everything you're saying. The question I had was a quick yes or no and then a follow-up. Has the Trump campaign reached out to you for him to get to meet you yet?
No.
We'll see. And then I was just wondering how the government in Germany is doing, like Chancellor Merkel. Are they good or bad? Like, what grade would you give them dealing with climate hysteria? Are they very for hysteria or?
Very bad.
Very bad?
There's very bad alarmism, hysteria going on in Germany. And the hypocritical thing is that we abandoned all nuclear power as well in 2010. And that would be actually a really good alternative, perhaps, to fossil fuels. And so this, once again, proves that it's not actually about the science. It's not really about CO2 emissions in the first place, because CO2 emissions have been rising dramatically in the last years in Germany, even though Angela Merkel keeps telling us that we need to drive them down, that we need to stop driving cars, that we need to stop using fossil fuels altogether. And yeah, that's just not possible, especially in Germany, where we don't have access to the sea, where the sun is not really shining all the time. And so alternative energy sources like solar power and wind energy, there are so many issues with that as well. That's just not sustainable in the long run. I'm sorry.
So not a big fan of Merkel? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am?
Hi, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Mizumi Dacher. I work for Japanese TV. I have two questions. One is you have a opposite opinion, a lot of opinion with the activist Greta. If you get a chance to confront with her and have a debate, what would be the first thing you would like to tell her? And the second question is, do you have any plan to tour around Asia in the future, especially Japan?
I will answer the second question first. I would love to do that. I love Asia. I've only been to Taiwan before, but Asia fascinates me. So yes, that would be amazing. I don't have any specific plans for that, but if anyone over there wants to invite me, sure, go ahead. And the first question about Greta. I see Greta as a young individual, as a girl, and not as the symbol for climate change. So I wouldn't actually want to debate her on the science because I don't want to destroy her. I want to show people that we could have a civil discussion, or not even a discussion, maybe just a casual conversation. And I would love to do that. And I think it would be very difficult to reach out to her. If she's willing to talk to me, absolutely, I would be very happy to do that. But as you heard, I was featured in the Washington Post a couple of days ago, and at the end of the article it says that they tried to reach out to Greta and she didn't want to comment on the article. So I think that might be difficult. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's try to get through these questions quickly so we can move on with the program. Go ahead. Sir?
I'm Russell Page. I'm a local patent attorney and mechanical engineer with a background in energy and natural gas pipelines. My question is for all of you, building on Naomi's theme of think, don't panic. Climate alarmism is based, as near as I can tell, entirely on computer modeling. And yet I don't know of any computer models that can produce the last 50 years worth of climate results from the last 50 years of climate data. And the last 50 years of climate data must be pretty good. So is there a campaign ready to launch to reject all computer climate models until they can at least produce the last 50 years results from the last 50 years of data?
I'll weigh in on that. Thank you for the question. It's really interesting. You hit it right on the head. It's a discussion and a debate about empirical observations in the real world versus speculative predictions. And by using the word computer model, they like to give people the impression that it's a fact. It's an equation. I could program a computer to create space invaders, but that doesn't mean Martians are going to invade the Earth tomorrow. What we do know is that going back over the past 30 years, the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, they've been predicting more severe hurricanes, tornadoes, droughts, floods, etc. But yet, even the United Nations itself, in its most recent report, they state that they have low confidence in any detectable sign on climate change and hurricanes. They state they have low confidence in any detectable sign on climate change and tornadoes. Low confidence, the same thing regarding droughts. Low confidence, the same thing regarding floods. And when you have that much empirical evidence that contradicts the asserted alarm, especially when we talk about, as Naomi mentioned earlier, their predictions about temperature itself, forget about the so-called extreme weather events, the temperatures in the real world have not risen, only about half as much. They have not risen as much as the prediction stated. So that's a fantastic question, and that's what I challenge people wherever you stand on this issue. And we all should be challenging ourselves, and we all should be looking at this with open minds, but to ask yourselves, what does the evidence say? What have we been able to show through the scientific method, which is utilizing real-world evidence to verify or disprove our observations, not speculation? Great question.
Furthermore, computer models are not inherently problematic, and there's nothing wrong with starting your research and asking your questions with those computer models, and then choosing your factors, what might be important. That is, I think that's really interesting and absolutely a way to do science, yes, but it's not enough. And that's the main point that we want to make. It's not enough to actually build policies upon those computer models and to spread this much panic. And we need to look into the complexity of the issue a lot more. So which other factors might contribute to climate change? And then we can expand those models, and that's fine. But the models that we're using right now, that the IPCC is using, they are outdated and they are too simple to accurately depict the makeup of the atmosphere.
And they haven't done a very good job of it, actually. I mean, their predictions have been very far off regularly.
Thank you.
Indeed. Thank you, sir. T-shirt for you. Don't wait. Don't forget. There you go. Sir, what's your name?
My name is Walt. I'm from Texas. Naomi, you're very bright.
Thank you.
The big thing that I picked up was you used the word think. You have not sabotaged your mind. You're one of the few young people I've seen who have not sabotaged their mind. I've lived my entire life by one quote I read back when I was 14 years old, and it is, when there's a conflict between the mind and the heart, always follow the mind. And I think that's one of the things that you have got going for you. Saying that, our educational system seems to be the root cause of all of the different problems that we have going, whether it be climate change, the climate activism, healthcare problems, and so on and so forth. They're by fields that we need to have government solve things, and they have sabotaged their mind to their feelings. Your comments, perhaps, on government-sponsored education and how that is actually the best way to solve our problems is to get rid of that?
I 100% agree. Yes, I've experienced that at school myself. Like I said, I was a climate alarmist, and it was once I got out of school that I started actually questioning those issues. I started being a skeptic in the political field when I was still at school, but I did not learn anything about those topics in class, and I actually had to challenge my teachers on many subjects, and many of my classmates were very annoyed with me because why can't we just continue the normal subjects in school? Why does she always have to ask questions and look into things further and stretch every issue that we're talking about at school? So I do agree. I don't know what we can do about that other than, as you said correctly, not have government-run schools anymore. And homeschooling, for example, is completely forbidden in Germany. I wish there was the opportunity to do that. I think I would love to invest in something like that one day, create an initiative for students, for free thinkers like myself. That would be amazing.
Before the next question, Jim, if I may, I know you'd said move them along, but I'm happy to sacrifice the time that was going to me for more questions if you have them, if that's all right with you in the audience, because this is wonderful. So by all means, feel free to keep asking questions.
Remember, ideas are the most powerful thing on earth.
Absolutely.
Good or bad, they're the most powerful thing out there. Keep
Thank you so
spreading
much
the
for
right
your question.
ideas, and hopefully we'll get rid of government-run education. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done, Walt. I'm going to make an executive decision. You can have 3 T-shirts. That was such a good... All right, just one. Sorry, bud.
Thank you very much.
Sir, your name?
My name's Tim Rush. I'm with the Lyndon LaRouche Political Action Committee. Comment and then a question for you, Naomi. Comment is a big subject. I just want to introduce it, not really go further into it. But this morning, there's a meeting going on in London involving the outgoing head of the Bank of England, Mark Carney, Lagarde from the European Central Bank, other top central banking layers who are, the whole theme is that we aren't moving fast enough to have a credit dictatorship where special panels will rate companies on whether they're complying with Green New Deal objectives, et cetera. And they say only 5 of 26 large banks and insurance companies currently have the proper methodology. They call them taxonomies. I don't want to go into it more, but this is a very scary confluence at a moment when we have an overripe London and Wall Street financial bubble popping. Coronavirus may contribute to it, but clearly it was going to happen through some way or another. The climate change mafia is trying to put a stranglehold on any financing for anything that is not low energy density, ineffective and expensive energy. That writes out a lot of the world from any future. So I think this meeting this morning just underscores the fact that we have to have in mind what this sort of central banker element is as a globalist financial mafia, utilizing this scare to put in this kind of Malthusian shift. My question to you is this. My group has gone out on college campuses with inoffensive signs saying that CO2 reduction is a mass murder policy. We've also had signs right next to it endorsing President Trump's plan to go back to the moon and Mars. It's called Project Artemis. It's a beautiful expansion of what the Kennedy Apollo project represented. And we're finding young people coming up, looking at these signs And they're asking questions, and immediately it opens up a whole idea of how to enlist themselves in great projects for mankind. Developing nuclear fusion energy is another one. Modular nuclear reactors for Africa is a third. All kinds of things like that. I wanted to ask you whether you've been able to convey to people your age the excitement of what actually is this frontier of exercising mankind's creativity, and getting, rather than just refuting Green New Deal ideas, get them excited about what real science means for mankind right now.
Yes, I have. The ones who really want to listen, they get so excited about it, and they approach me and they tell me, I want to hear more, and where can I do more research? Can you recommend some scientists that I can look up, for example? And that is so powerful, those conversations that I have with people my age, and I did not experience that in Germany. I experienced that online. Many people sent me messages, and then I had some younger people coming up to me here at this conference, and this is the first time actually that I really see something like that happening, and it warms my heart. It's amazing to talk about science, not just in a very cold way, but to actually get people excited about it. Yes, just like I've always been so excited about it.
If I could add just
Tim,
one
There
thing.
is hope.
Right.
Well, Tim raised a really important issue that has all of a sudden been the years in the making, but has all of a sudden sprung on us. It isn't just the UK that's having this banker issue in major companies. There are major investment funds that are headed in this direction. The two companies that proxy vote, for those of us who own small amounts of stock and you just don't vote it, there's proxy vote. They're both very much leftist, and they control 97% of the proxy votes, and they're voting to the left. Part of how corporate officers and corporate boards of directors on major corporations are graded is on what they're doing to push their green initiatives into the major corporations. We have banks out voluntarily, banks out in the oil patch of West Texas that are requiring for just regular producers, or if somebody owns 5 or 10 trucks or has a small company in the oil business, that when they borrow money now, they have to present a green plan for their business. They're not required to do anything with it yet. So this is going on across our country throughout our major corporations. I would call it that kind of marriage of the establishment, the stuff, a lot of stuff that we don't like, of the big business and the big government together working this. And you have agency upon agency, you have research professors that are getting a lot of money on it. It has been going on for a long time. And I think part of why they want to tell us it's a crisis and we all have to act now is because at some point you get tired of it being a crisis. You'll see that it truly isn't a crisis, and we won't ever act the way they'd like us to get the control they want.
Thank you, sir.
I just wanted to add for Naomi, we've had tables at NYU and other big U.S. cities where one of the tables is our own, and we say the world needs more people, LaRouche PAC. And the other table, which is just a fake table, but we do it as dueling tables, says the world needs fewer people, and it's called Lemmings PAC. And you'll have people come up on both sides arguing with you, and suddenly when they realize that this was a setup to get them to start thinking, it just opened up a tremendous excitement. So I just wanted to mention you need some humor as well.
Yeah, thank you. Next questioner.
Hi, I'm Effie from Philadelphia. My question for Naomi is, first I want to commend you. You've done is amazing. My parents, when they read about you, they told me, you got to go to your talk here at CPAC, and I'm a little bit late, but I'm glad I came. But my question is, one of the biggest things I would make fun of my friends who really listen to Greta Thunberg, and they would really make a big deal out of her. Is she's a kid, no experience, has done nothing in her life. I'm not that much older than you, and I thought back in college that I knew a lot about nursing, healthcare. But then actually, when I started working in the field, I realized how little I knew back before I started working and living life and experiencing a little bit. So while you're very bright, and I commend you, very brave for talking out and speaking out, and I know a little bit what it's like to lose friends and be attacked online. What kind of gives you the credibility to be a voice in this discussion?
I've already mentioned it before. I don't have full credibility to talk about all these issues, and that's why I want people to continue questioning me and doing their own research. And I love talking about these topics. I love having discussions about the science. But that's what I want to inspire. I want to inspire discussions and not one-sided views. And so I am a side as well. So I've got my own perspective on things, and I want to be just part of this entire global puzzle piece, this entire puzzle of discussions that we have all over the world. That is the essence of free speech.
If I can add,
I was going to say, Naomi, and you mentioned you had come in late, but it talked about, and one of her favorite things is reading science papers.
Yeah.
So she's done a lot of reading and has talked to a number of different scientists in this area. So she's taken it upon herself to educate herself, which she's advocating you all do, but who has time to do it on all the important issues? But I'd suggest this is the Trojan horse issue. This is the gateway drug, the crack used by the left to get people hooked on ever bigger government. But she's put in a lot of time and effort and research, and does that make her a scientist with 20, 30 years of experience? No, it doesn't. But it also gives her, and she's entitled to her perspective.
and if I can add, one thing that really impresses me about Naomi, and when I first started watching her videos too, she didn't say, listen to me because I know everything. Listen to me because I'm smarter than you. Listen to me because I have these degrees or anything else. Naomi just felt very passionate about things, and she started speaking about them, and it resonated with people. And even now, where her YouTube followers are now at 60,000, which is amazing. That's a testimony to the influence she's having. And when we have the media that are wanting to talk with her and hear what she has to say, still here she is saying, well, I'm not telling you that you should listen to me more than anyone else based upon any credentials or anything else. I'm just giving you, my insight. And I think it's that in and of itself, when you have 60,000 followers and people that want to hear what she has to say, and yet still she's humble enough to say, I'm just reading, I'm just following current events and philosophy, and I'm giving my opinion. And I think it's remarkable that so many people are interested.
It's refreshing.
Yeah, Naomi has a real passion for free speech. Good. And in the world today, one of the few things you're not allowed to speak freely about is the climate, because then you're called names and you're shouted down, and the media tries to shut you out from stories because bringing balance would kill the earth and stuff like that. And so it all falls in line with Naomi's real passion for free speech, which used to be a pretty uncontroversial topic in the United States, and it's not anymore, which is a shame. But thank you for your question.
Good job, Naomi.
Thank you so much.
Sir, your name?
My name is Gordon Davison. I'm a New Zealander who grew up in Australia. And recently, my question for you is, obviously they had the Australian bushfires, you had volcanic eruption in New Zealand, and by default, it seems that the media's approach and the climate fanatics is to try and use these kind of natural phenomena that have been going on forever as a means to justify their doom and gloom climate theories. What would you tell someone, who was saying, oh no, we're all going to die, these fires are starting because of climate change, what's your advice when you're trying to deal with someone like that?
Precisely what you just said. It's just cherry picking data and blowing up issues that are happening in one part of the world right now in this moment in time. And if you need to, when you talk about climate means the changes in temperature and weather over a span of 30 years. So you have to look at those 30 years and not just one place on Earth somewhere. It's just to approach topics from a wider angle.
And it's interesting, if I can just add here, I hang out at a cigar lounge, and when the news coverage of the Australian fires came on, one of my friends, and he'll do this whenever some topic comes up, says, so James, still don't believe in climate change? And of course, that's completely misrepresenting what the debate is not whether climate change is real or happening, whatever. It's are we facing a crisis? But because you mentioned the Australian wildfires, we published a couple articles at the Heartland Institute, and others have as well, pointing out that the Australian Bureau of Meteorology, they have published on their website maps. And you can see going back, if you click starting in 1900, 1920, 1940, whatever time period you want, when you click on that map, it shows that precipitation is increasing as time goes by and the planet warms. They also have color-coded maps for each year over the past century showing whether, the regions of the country that have had above average and below average precipitation. And what you've seen is that during the past 2 decades, it has been substantially more precipitation than has normally been the case. So yes, you'll occasionally get a dry year. That happens. Global warming can't solve droughts and can't make them go away entirely. But as Naomi says, look at the data, look at the facts, look at the trends. And so, yeah, wildfires will still occur, but actually they're becoming less frequent and less severe, especially in Australia.
Well, and as you know, in Australia, because it's getting a bit, and it's a desert continent, and it is getting a bit wetter, those tea trees and those eucalyptus trees, both which have lots of oil in them, are growing very well. And going back about a decade, there were a number of forestry management and others who said we need to do controlled burns, as the Aborigines did, and the other, they did until just 20 years ago, because there gets to be too much fuel built up from dying trees and dying brush. And then, as I'm sure you know, being in New Zealand, they arrested, I don't know, some 60, 70 people for setting fires around the country. So it was done. But of course, your underlying point is why is the media doing? The media's in on it, folks. The regular leftist media is in on it, and they're selling us a false narrative on a regular basis. So they're in on the government control stuff. That's why this is happening. And they don't care about the facts. And they don't care about spinning or twisting or even outright lying and just making things up, which is unfortunate, because that is, hence we have, Trump talking about our president, talking about fake news, and people believe it. Why? Well, there's a fair amount of fakeness there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, your name?
Hi, my name's Naomi as well.
Oh.
I'm an Australian school student, and obviously climate change is a very hot topic in Australia, especially with the bushfires and the drought recently. And that obviously brings up a lot of young climate activists who don't actually know a lot about the topic. And I came in a bit late, so sorry if this has already been talked about, but I was just wondering what your approach would be to sort of like not educating, but just having discussions with them about it where they won't just sort of blatantly deny everything you're saying.
Exactly. Start slowly and just ask them a couple of questions. Do your own research, first of all, and then find out which topics are the most, which topics related to climate change are you most fascinated in, most passionate about, and then you can ask those people questions about the topics. Like, for example, what even is the ideal global mean surface temperature? What are your arguments about how destructive CO2 emissions are? What are they really based on? Is it really real-world data, or is it just climate models or claims that some kind of IPCC member has made in the past that you heard somewhere? Because what's important is that we don't spread panic based on a bubble of lies or just hysteria. That's that's what we need to fight. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hi, Naomi. I'm a scientist as well, and I've heard this question posed to you several times. What gives you the right to talk about this? I just want to say off the bat, you do not need to be a scientist to comment on this subject. If you do, that means that you're focusing on a very small detail, not the overall issue, and it really frustrates me when people ask you that. You are a human being who can think and determine right from wrong, and you have every right to comment on this. And I also really appreciate your defense of Stephen Molyneux.
What's your name again, sir?
Benjamin Chaffetz. Sorry, did I not say that?
You did not.
I'm sorry. But yeah, my question to you is, you've identified yourself as a libertarian throughout this whole thing and say, you're not really right-wing or left-wing. And that's fine. I'm not criticizing you or anything. I'm just curious, what is, and I myself went on this journey, so don't feel bad or anything, but what is keeping you from saying I'm a conservative or a Republican or not?
It's difficult to define those terms in the first place, but I know that I don't like how the media will always try to paint me as some kind of authoritarian right-wing person. That's my main issue with it. I don't like the implication of authoritarianism that comes with the right wing or with conservatism. And that's because I identify with so many very liberal values, and it would be wrong of me to say, it would be incorrect if I refer to myself as purely a conservative or a person on the right wing, because I believe in so many liberal values, and freedom is my freedom and honesty are my first principles, and that's why I identify with the term libertarianism more than right-wing conservatism. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Mia. I'm also from Europe, like yourself. I'm here in college, and I would not call myself a climate alarmist whatsoever because I don't do anything as like recycling or whatever. However, my take on this is considering what you talked about yourself and everything, I feel like we have pretty much this, no offense, but pretty much the same background of science or science background like you called it, which is pretty much taking high school classes and reading about it and talking to experts about it. So I'm not that much older than you, so we're kind of on the same page there. So my question is, you call yourself a climate realist a couple of times, yet you seem to be disregarding global warming. And to me, it just seems like you are saying, yes, there are fires, but we as a society can't do anything to stop those fires. So it just seems like you're saying fires are there, but let's not send firefighters, because in the beginning you said we can't do much by recycling because climate changes and climate is going to fix itself. Well, if there's a fire, are we not supposed to shut the fire down rather than, just let it be and observe? Thank you.
Maybe we shouldn't add gasoline to the fire instead. So what I'm really saying is, no, I'm not saying don't send the firefighters. I'm saying stop using the wrong measures to stop the fire.
But you're saying that the fire is
I'm saying that the fire is not caused by CO2 emissions. And what we're being told is that we have to reduce CO2 emissions in order to stop the fire. And I don't believe that because I've done my research on those topics. And so why would I go out and say, let's stop the fires with these exact measures? I'm not saying don't stop the fires.
So just to get this straight, what you're saying is, yes, we should stop the fire, but we shouldn't do much about it? That's what I'm getting from it. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. No, that's fine. You're absolutely right, actually.
Could I clarify the question? Because I think we're not really...
Go ahead.
The analogy you're using isn't the best analogy.
Okay.
It's the underlying argument is man causing the fire?
No,
and the answer is, well, but that is what it is, because what the left has said is it's CO2. The warming of the earth, the fire, I think that's your analogy, the fire is caused by CO2. Man-made started it.
Okay.
And you're saying, well, if man started it, man should stop it. And we're saying, well, man didn't start it. Yeah, there's a fire there, but man didn't start it. And I think if we cut it, personally, I think you get a lot of scientists who said if we reduce CO2 in half and went from 400 parts per million to 200 parts per million, well, what effect does that have? Well, we get a lot less crops and a whole other different things. But to say that she's not saying, she says that there's no man-made fire. Yeah, there's a fire, it's warming. Yeah, it started in 1850, long before we did any of this stuff.
So we're not guilty for global warming is what you're saying, pretty much.
Yeah, when you look outside, for example, and it's too hot for you, it's summer and it's a very hot day, and you're really annoyed, what are you going to do? Are you going to start snow?
No, but you can take measures to make yourself cooler.
Yes, but
right,
in this
you put
case,
on you turn on your electric air conditioner.
yes.
Or, I don't know, like take off some clothes.
But still, as we said, you are talking about natural phenomenons.
So if I can weigh in a little bit, and by the way, thank you for your question, Mia. I know it can be difficult to pose a question that's not in keeping with the speaker, so I do appreciate that. I would point out that when we have had warming temperatures in the past, 1,000 years ago during the medieval warm period, that brought enormous increases in crop production. People lived longer lives, populations increased. And afterwards, what brought it to an end was the Little Ice Age, in which you had crop failures, famines, plagues, and actual decreases in human lifespans. And I think sometimes it's easy to think that if humans are having some impact on the environment, it must be bad and we must stop it. It must be a fire. But when we plant seeds in a farm, we're having an impact on the environment. We're changing it, but we're bringing about a benefit. And the evidence is out there. We see that there's been a greening of the earth with more vegetation. It's been measured by satellite instruments. We've seen record crop production. Almost every year, new records are being set. We have mortality data in the United States and around the world, plus peer-reviewed studies showing that many more people are killed due to cold temperatures than warm temperatures. And I think it'd be useful for everybody to take a look at that and say, just because we're causing some warming, does that mean we're causing a crisis? Does that mean we're causing a fire? And throughout history, the evidence seems pretty strong that it's been beneficial. And as I mentioned earlier about speculation versus empirical evidence, the predicted negative consequences, whether it be wildfires, droughts, you name it, by and large haven't shown up. And it's been as best as the scientific evidence indicates from the scientists we work with. And of course, everybody should look it up for themselves because they can differ and present different evidence if they want or try and find it. But the evidence indicates that we're creating a net positive, not a fire that needs to be put out. But I do thank you for the question.
Yeah, I do really appreciate your question. And I like that you're being skeptical. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and I would just add one other thing on top. James, the Paris Climate Accord, I believe even the United Nations says if we did everything the Paris Climate Accord said, every single country in the world, or the United States not doing it, we're lowering our CO2 anyway, but the difference between doing everything in Paris and doing nothing in Paris is a fraction of a degree by the year 2100. I think it's 0.2 of a degree.
Well, according to the EPA, using their modeling, if we completely eliminated U.S. carbon dioxide emissions today, immediately, the impact would be less than 0.2 degrees Celsius. It would be more like, I think, 0.14.
Right.
Which is essentially too small to be noticed.
That's presuming
Almost no effect.
Yeah, that's presuming you could actually accurately measure 0.2 of a degree global temperature in 100 years. So, good point. Sir?
Chris Marmo. So this has been my most passionate or angering issue for years, dating all the way back to when the light bulbs were replaced, which I know that the president just, kind of reversed that. You could get normal light bulbs again. But I just think to me, I don't deny regular climate change like you guys were saying, but I totally deny, or totally, I should say, rebuke the idea that we could do something about it. I think it's very arrogant to think we could do something about it. But I guess the comment/question is, lately, the last several years, with now what's being brought up with the Green New Deal and all kinds of things like that about you shouldn't eat meat, that somehow affects climate. Seems like everything we do now as human beings, you shouldn't do because it affects climate. As a logical person, not a scientist, it just seems insane to me. So I guess, are you aware of anything, or are you aware of what is being said that if people stopped eating meat and all of that, is there anything anybody's pointing to tangibly to say, what is that even going to do? It just seems like they're throwing things at a wall, hoping they stick, and I do think it's all about control. And so I just don't know if you're aware of anything that they're pointing to scientifically on some of the latest crazy things like not eating meat.
You can absolutely take measures to be a more sensible environmentalist, but to me that just has nothing to do with reducing CO2 emissions. So for example, investing in products from local farmers, that might be a very good solution and a more ethical solution to the mass production of animal products. For example, I do enjoy riding my bike around the town. I think that's amazing for all kinds of reasons, but they are not related to CO2 emissions. So everything that is being propagandized as we must do this or we must not do this because of CO2 emissions, I disagree with. But there are ways, of course, to be more in touch with nature, if you will.
It's interesting, the question and the solutions that have been offered in going to, and Germany's well down this path, and they're enjoying, I think, almost triple electric costs from what we have here, is that wind and solar are the only options, if you think about it. Nuclear is, no more nuclear. In fact, get rid of it, and the Germans have done that. No hydro, no dams, no more of those. Okay, so wind and solar, but wind and solar, the wind only blows some of the time, the sun only shines some of the time, And when it snows, you don't have any. In the northern climes, you don't get much bright sun. So you have to have base power. So you have to have your natural gas or your coal-fired power plant too. And in fact, like your car, when you're driving down the road and you're not using cruise control and you go fast and you go slow and you go fast and you go slow, around the city driving, you get a lot less gas mileage than when you're on the highway and you put on cruise control and you don't have to slow down or speed up. It's the same principle goes on with that base power. If CO2, minimum CO2 is your whole point of doing things, you wouldn't have two power systems, and we can't live with just wind and solar. And that's the only solutions that's being offered. So it can't really be about CO2 reduction because it's not logical.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Hemi and I'm from India. I'm also 19, so I have as much experience as you have. I do believe in the climate cycles and I do think it is real. However, based on what I know from what I learned in school, the Industrial Revolution only started like 200 years ago. And it is only then that we started using fossil fuels. So even though climatic cycles were happening already, warming of the climate, warming of the earth happens when CO2 levels rise and the ice age and the levels calm down and it cools when the CO2 levels go down. So fossil fuel emissions technically did increase the CO2 levels. My question is, that technically, logically makes sense to me that CO2 more emissions from fossil fuels have led to this. I do not really know if it is as alarming as people say it is. But my question to you is, what are the credible sources that you have used to find out that CO2 is not responsible and carbon emissions are not responsible for the global warming that you say it is?
We can start with what you just mentioned about CO2 emissions and warming. You said that warming follows CO2 emissions, but what if it's the other way around? Because what Al Gore told us, what he showed us in this graph, is actually a kind of distorted graph, and it doesn't really show us at all that warming stems from CO2 emissions. And second of all, one of the first principles of science is correlation does not equal causation. So that is one of the points that most people get wrong if they don't really look into the science. And like I said, some resources that I can, some sources that I can recommend would be people like Richard Linson, Nir Shaviv, and Henrik Svensmark on the solar cycles. If you're interested in the polar bears, you can read what Susan Crockford has published. Then there's someone sitting here right now. I hope I get your name right. Gregory Wrightstone. Yeah, he just wrote an excellent book that I started reading last night. That really condenses many of the climate change topics in a very comprehensible format in an excellent book. So thank you for writing that book.
I just have another question.
Yes.
So earlier you mentioned that solar energy is not really as efficient as you said it is, and the sun is actually little harmful. Also, that nuclear energy is very risky and also it's super expensive, but fossil fuels are exhaustible. So what do you think is the alternate energy resources that generations of your future are going to use? Because renewable energy source is expensive and it's hot, and the technology for that to make it available to all people is not there yet. And fossil fuels are going to be gone in a few hundred years.
You are saying that nuclear energy is so incredibly risky. I would disagree with that. Nuclear energy is dangerous because you get individual incidences that are actually catastrophes every so many years. I don't know for sure. I think it's 30 or something. There's a statistic out there about that. But many people disregard the fact that even those alternative energy sources like solar energy and wind energy, they come with lots of dangers themselves. So you need to compare the two realistically. And secondly, we are doing lots of research on nuclear energy, for example, and looking into things more and how we can build those reactors in ways that will make this way of getting energy a lot safer. And so I think it's important that we invest in sensible science, and meanwhile that we don't rush to drastic measures and abandon all fossil fuels, because we've gained so many benefits from using fossil fuels, and it's just ridiculous to demonize all of that.
It's the major fuel source in the world. Fossil fuels, petroleum, is about 99% of the energy used in the world. Without it, we wouldn't have energy. And billions of people, and I'm not, you want alarm, and this is just a fact, billions of people would die because you wouldn't put enough crops in the ground and you wouldn't be able to bring them from wherever they're grown to wherever we need to eat them. So people would die, billions, and particularly in your country of India. Another data point is the U.S. military for more than 50 years has had nuclear-powered subs and major aircraft carriers and major ships on the ocean with zero, in combat situations, zero problems or leaks. We've had plenty, and nuclear is not a high-cost option. And in comparison to solar and wind, it's a low-cost option. Although my understanding in India, solar is actually a lower-cost option from something I just read recently. But you really, what Naomi is talking about, what this has all been about, is really look at the facts and then look behind the curtain of what the general establishment education system and the leftist media are selling you, and try to get behind that and then make up your own mind.
I consider myself intellectually curious, and yet I was at a cigar lounge last night. Naomi, here you are visiting the United States of America for the first time, the beautiful National Harbor, and you're reading Gregory Wrightstone's book, which is a fantastic book. But my goodness, I admire, should I want to say your dorkiness? I don't know. I admire your intellectual dorkiness. I know we have about 10 minutes left, Jim. All right.
Yeah,
about 10 minutes?
We have 15 minutes left.
Okay.
And Naomi, next time you visit Washington, D.C., take Greg's book to the Lincoln Memorial and knock two things out at once. Sir, your name?
Hello, I'm Herb Pearson, and I was wondering if you've done any research about hydrogen fuel technologies?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Hydrogen fuel technologies?
Yes, I have some research, but not enough to, I guess, comment on it very thoroughly. I actually did a longer science project about that at school. I do think it's quite fascinating, but at the same time, I think it's another thing that we need to look into more slowly. And instead of rushing to alternative solutions to something that doesn't even need an alternative so desperately right now.
I've read that they actually have more fuel cell technology stations in Germany than in any other country, and that they have, but they're short on cars, but a lot of car builders are starting to build hydrogen fuel cells. Volvo, Toyota, Honda, I believe, and some other ones as well. So that's a coming technology that you might want to be more aware of. The other thing I wanted to ask is, do you happen to have a website or something so we could see some of your research?
No, I don't have my own website, but
Okay.
you can absolutely check out the Heartland Institute's website.
Okay.
And we publish lots of articles on there. Sometimes I will write articles or publish videos, and I intend to make more videos, scientific videos in a concise format, especially for younger people on my YouTube channel, on the Heartland Institute's YouTube channel. So I do recommend that.
Yes. Heartland.org, and also there's a brand new website called climaterealism.com that you should check out.
And Climate at a Glance very shortly will be another place to get good information.
Okay, fantastic. I appreciate your help. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sir, a second time through for a question, you do not get another T-shirt, just letting you know.
That's fine.
All
That's
right,
fine.
maybe
It's a good
anyway.
T-shirt though. It's great.
Depends on the
Okay.
question.
All right, so this is kind of it's going to be a bit of a challenge, but I have a master's degree in engineering. I used to build analytical systems for the CIA. I know a little bit about modeling, and just by comparison, there are hundreds of millions of dollars being spent on Wall Street to try and model the stock market. Nobody has succeeded yet. And if you look at the complexity of the Earth, it's probably several orders of magnitude more complex than the stock market. So I tend not to believe any of the models out there. I mean, yeah, if you can match them with past history, that's fine. That's a predictive method. But things that project out to 100 years, I'm not going to believe. We can't predict the weather in 2 weeks. So that's I'm skeptical of everything. So just a piece of data there. But the challenge is, James, did you actually assert that in medieval times, farming was better because of carbon dioxide increases?
Not because of carbon dioxide increases, because of warming temperatures.
Warming temperature. Okay, yeah, that makes sense because there was.
If I said
a
carbon
dip in
dioxide emissions, I stand corrected.
Yeah,
But
I
warming
thought
temperatures.
You said that. I had to challenge that as if it was an assertion.
That's good. That's good you challenged me. If I asserted it, that was wrong.
All right, that's all I have.
Thank you. Ma'am, your name?
Hello, my name is Jamie. This is a question for Naomi. I was just on The Guardian and reading an article, and it said that you were discussing an attack on a synagogue in Hall that killed 2 people who were outside the temple, and said Jews were considered to be at the top of the groups who were seen as being oppressed. Ordinary Germans, she said, were at the bottom. Muslims, she added, were somewhere in between. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, sure. I think that's ridiculous how the media cherry picks things that I said, because it wasn't about denying the Holocaust or saying anything against Jews at all. In fact, I was commenting on the fact that I think it's wrong to comment on different races differently and to view them differently. We should just all be regarded as the same. And so that was what I was actually saying. That is how I perceive the public view on different races or different religions, all of that. So yeah, I really hate how the media tries to misrepresent my views and how I view Jews, how I view Muslims, because I am an individualist, and what's important to me is how we can act face to face. And I don't care if you're a Jew or a Muslim or or 100% German or whatever. It doesn't matter to me. What matters to me are your true values, your personal values, and your your free mind. That's all that I care about.
Have you attended any neo-Nazi rallies or alt-right rallies you had mentioned earlier?
Oh, no, of course not. No. Okay. And I think it's horrible that in every movement, and that's why I don't align myself with any party or any political group or anything like that, because I know that there are people out there, neo-Nazis, who will join those groups and who will stay undercover for a while, and then they will rise, and then they will basically ruin the entire reputation of the group. And I think it's important that we stop all collectivism, basically, and that's why I try to stay as independent and individualistic as possible.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Gregory?
Just a real quick question. We spoke a little bit yesterday.
Did you like my book? I think she's.
Thanks for the shout out. This might help with your response to the last question. Who were some of the great thinkers that have influenced you? We talked a little bit about in economics and philosophy. Just name a few of those that I'm sure a lot of us in this room respect. Who are they?
I really love Friedrich Hayek, Ludwig von Mises, Milton Friedman. Yeah, those are some main names. I also loved reading John Locke, Bastiat, John Stuart Mill. Some examples.
And just as a sidelight, in economics, we have graduates of many universities throughout the United States who wouldn't recognize the names she just said. And it's true. I've talked to them and I've asked, "Oh, you're in economics, economics at UW-Madison. Have you ever heard of Mises?" Who? Milton Friedman, I think I heard that name once. I mean, it's amazing, but they'll all know Marx. They'll all have read Marx or been forced in some class. But great questions. We are at our final 5 minutes. Complicated topic, but it isn't that complicated. There's a reason the left is using this, and it is to gain control over your wallets, your purses, and our lives. That is what this is really, really about. They have really insinuated themselves into our governments, our universities, our schools, our major corporations, and you all should be very concerned. I challenge you to talk to people in the middle. Challenge the people on the left if there are people in the middle who will listen and are hearing it. Don't give up. Don't lose heart. We're a great country, and that's something to remind all of you of, is we're a great country and we take it for granted. But because we've had 240 years, doesn't guarantee us another 50, another 10. And we should join the fight, and that's part of the reason you're all here at CPAC, I think. And I think this really is the big Trojan horse issue that the left is using very effectively. So do your own research, make up your own mind, learn to talk to people in the middle, keep calm, carry on. And we thank you for being here and for listening.
Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to our channel and consider donating to the Heartland Institute to support more vibrant free markets, greater individual liberties, and more videos like this one.